We're going to show you how to reconfigure a TRMS we'll call it a dongle. It's a TRMS module for connecting up either current transformers, potential transformers, to a station logger. It has a cable on it with a smart sensor jack. So we've had this device connected to our U30 product, and we've just purchased an RX3000, which is the next generation in station loggers, and we want to use this same device on the RX3000. Now, the difference between the U30 and the RX3000 is in the U30 you would directly configure your scaling in your TRMS module using our HOBOware software, and the scaling lives in the module. With the RX3000, the scaling actually lives in HOBO Link in the web browser, which is great because then you don't have to physically connect a USB cable to your RX3000 to configure that module. You can do it remotely via the web. In order to use this on the RX3000, we have to remove the existing scaling from this device before we disconnect it from our U30. So we're going to do that now. So we're using the free version of HOBOware. We have our U30 station connected to our USB port, and we're going to go in to the launch screen, and we're going to reconfigure this module. Again, we can just the configuration is sticky, what they call sticky. So once we configure the module, it will stay with the module even when we disconnect it and plug it into our RX3000. So you can see here we have this is our TRMS module 2001-8916 is our serial number, and we can see both channels are configured, one's for current, one's for voltage. So what we need to do is to set these back to neutral scaling, or no scaling if you will, so that we can add the scale factors in HOBO Link when we connect it to our RX3000. If you leave the scaling in here and then plug it in to the RX3000 and then try to scale it there without neutral scaling or without no scaling, your values aren't going to be correct. So let's go in here and reset the scaling in here. So all you want to do is just set these so they're equal. So we're just going to say 0 to 333 like that. And it doesn't really matter what we call it, if voltage or current or whatever we want to call it, doesn't matter. But what we want to make sure is that there is no scaling in here before we take this out and plug it into our RX3000. When you buy a new TRMS module, it comes scaled just like this, so you don't have to worry about doing that with a new one. But because we're moving this from the U30 to an RX3000, we have to make sure that we do this. So we click on Configure, and it says it's successful. We'll go to the next channel. This one was configured for a potential transformer. We're just going to make this neutral as well. Configure it. Okay. And just to make sure everything goes well, I'm just going to launch the logger really quickly, even though I'm not going to be using my U30 anymore. I'm just going to launch it to make sure all of these parameters get loaded in. And again, I'm just going to stop it. Click stop. There we go. And now what we'll do is we'll go out, we'll put this in our RX3000, and I will show you how to scale this in HOBO Link. We have stopped our logger, our U30, and removed the TRMS module from the U30, and we've plugged it into our RX3000 station. The way we did that was it's going into our lake onset monitoring station here. We had to stop the lake onset monitoring station from logging by pressing the stop button on the device, or we could go to Configure and stop it here and wait for the next connection. I was lucky enough it's close by, so I was able to press the stop button and then plug in my TRMS dongle and then press start again, so it would start logging again. So here we can see, here is our voltage channels, our TRMS channels right here, and now we can go in and configure them for use with our sensors. If you're only going to use one of these channels, you cannot disable this from being displayed. You can certainly not graph it, but it will still show up as connected. So You can give it a label that just says no, no connection or something like that if you want. But it does show up in your smart sensor list here. So in order to get the correct scale factor for your sensor that it's going to connect up to this, you go to the HOBO Link User's Guide. The way I got to that was I clicked on Support and Help, and there is a link from the help screen to the User's Guide. So I have that open in my other tab in my browser. There it is. Let me just go back to the lake onset device. So now what we want to do is we want to configure this correctly for our application and what sensor we have connected. So let's go to the user's guide. This is on page 21 currently. That may change with revisions, but it is in chapter 2. And what we're using is a TACT 750 050 50 amp CT. So here is the scaled units is amps. The multiplier is here listed. The offset will be 0, and the scale measurement type, again, you can call this anything you want, AC current or current, whatever you want to call it, you can call it that, but these are the suggested ones. So I want to make sure that I use the scale factor for that first channel because that's where I'm going to have my CT connected. So let's go back to the device. Here's my first channel. Click on the little tool icon, and here is my sensor configuration. We're going to call this circuit number 1. And again, you can call it, I'm going to spell it right here, circuit number 1. You can call it anything you want to, whatever you're having it connected to. You want to enable scaling so you can scale this device correctly. So if you recall, our scale units is amps, and you could call that amps AC if you want, whatever you'd like. The important bit is the scale factor, the multiplier. You have to make sure it matches what's in that user's guide in order to get your 0 to 50 amp scaling correct. Our offset is 0. Our scaled measurement type, again, we suggest calling it current, but you can call it anything you'd like to. There we go. And now we just save it. And now that configuration is done. And now you can see it says current, circuit number 1, and it's reading 0 amps because I don't have my CT connected. And then you can simply click on the other channel to configure that the same way by clicking on the little toolbar icon. And then your module is configured and you're ready to start your logging deployment.